It's real. It's real. You know the deal. You know the deal. Come on.
Hey, it's Shanté.
And I'm Natalie, and welcome to What's the Deal, a podcast powered by the Norfus Firm. At the Norfus Firm, we solve people problems. We have the great pleasure of working with employers all around the world on HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. So we get to nerd out today like we do every other day, but this time we get to bring someone with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because one of the things that we lament a lot about lately is people say they want change, but they won't change their behavior.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with behavior change?
It's like they don't understand what's required to get the results that they want to get. So that, people have these pie in the sky kind of images or visuals or visions or whatever they want in their organizations, but they're not willing to do the work that they need to do themselves in order to move that forward. And so hold on for a second. Can we start that over, Sarah? Whatever you're doing over there is crackling.
Oh, sorry. I was taking notes on what you were saying. So I didn't want to forget.
So perfect for this nerdy thing, right?
Saying something and I was like, oh, I want to make sure that I can reference that. And so I grabbed my notebook because I didn't have it ready. So I'm good. I'll be quiet.
No, I love this.
This couldn't be any more perfect. We said we were going to nerd out, and then the nerd on the other side is making noise.
Grab a paper and pen and write this. Woman after my own heart. I probably messed up the same way. Oh wait, no, all sorts of crap.
Exactly. And then Shanté can hear anything. So she was like, hold on, we're not going to do this. We're going to pause it. But no, this is perfect.
My brain is short circuiting. Okay, let's do it.
Please keep this. Please keep all of this.
Wait,
don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Santi's like, can we? Yep.
We're good. So
wait, should I just continue with where we are? Cool. So we were saying organizational leaders with behavior change. All right. So organizational leaders with behavior change, and why it's so hard is because, they have a vision of where they're trying to go, but they can't quite fill that gap because it requires self-awareness and it requires you maybe to have to do something a little bit differently. And that's hard for people. We don't deal with change very well in general as a species, right? So it's like you're asking me to, I don't even know what is that's uncomfortable for me to change who I am. People are very invested in themselves, but to do the work, especially if we're talking about DEI and we're asking you to engage with different types of people, some of which may be people you've never ever dealt with ever before, it's going to require you to show up in a different way. And so,
well, and if I could just say before we deep dive, we're actually not even asking people to change who they are. We're asking them to adjust behavior.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that we're really trying to adjust behavior. Okay, so let's introduce our guests and jump in because we're really wilding right now. But
Okay. Oh, so that's my cue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We've done this before, guys. I promise we've done this before.
Sarah's energy. I think she just brings
she's great.
She brings us.
That makes me so happy.
But no, we're here with Sarah Noll Wilson, and Sarah is incredible. She is the Chief Edge Officer, which I love that title, and I really want to understand what that is. And founder of Sarah Noll Wilson. It's a consulting firm, right? An organization that works with leaders, and her main purpose here is to help them close the gap between what they intend to do and then the actual impact that they can make. So it's like, that's where the change comes in, right? Like, again, you have a vision, you want to have a certain impact. How do you get there? Sarah can get you there.
Exactly.
So she's also a great keynote speaker and a podcaster just like us. So we're really, really happy to have Sarah on the podcast today. And Sarah, just tell us, how did you come into this work?
Yeah.
I feel like I have to give what's the most abbreviated answer to this. Here's the short answer. My undergraduate degree was in theater performance and theater education. And so I didn't know anything about a 401k. I didn't know anything about business because I just was, trained to know that you're going to be poor and you're going to keep trying to make it as an artist. And I found my way to insurance because that's what you do when you're in Des Moines, Iowa. And because we have so many headquarters here. Yeah, I always say, I chased a boy, it worked out. And so then, what started me on this path of leadership development honestly does come from my theater background, which is working on shows is all about an incredible amount of collaboration on multiple levels. It's an incredible amount of structure and consistency to be able to produce what you need to produce. And I became really fascinated once I got into the corporate space about how dysfunctional it felt compared to the experiences I had in the creative arts. The other thing that got me into this was my theater education degree was not teaching theater, it was using theater as an educational tool. So I did a lot of work partnering with schools on how do we think about learning differently. So at its core, my foundation has always been about learning and connecting and self-awareness. I just didn't know what that would look like. The turning point was really realizing how many people were put into positions of power and authority with absolutely no skill, no prep, no training. And we just say, here, take some people, good luck, don't mess them up too much. And the other thing that I realized is that at the organization I was at the time, the people who were doing their management training had never managed people, were never in formal leadership positions. And so they couldn't understand the challenges or speak to it. And so that led me onto a path of, well, if I want to help leaders be better, I need to figure out what this is like. So I did as much management as I could, got my master's in leadership development, and then it was game over. The thing that really shifted me was the company I was with before starting my own company. Was we fundamentally shifted how we thought about development in the workplace, and the way the language we would use is don't develop the role, develop the whole person. What does that look like to develop the whole person and to invest in them in such a meaningful way? And we saw such significant impact from that. That's what started me on this path. And now I'm just exhausted by the amount of unnecessary suffering, hurt, harm that happens in the workplace. And if we can try to make it a little bit better, a little less worse. I mean, it's terrible to say that, but it's like, if we can just make it a little less worse so that it doesn't totally eat our souls, then that's the work my colleagues and I want to do. And I know.
Listen, I was like, hey, we're just starting with a really normal introduction here. And she's like, this shit is hard, guys. It's hard. And the reality is, I really appreciate that level of vulnerability and transparency, Sarah, because that is what people are feeling regularly. I will tell you, last night I went to have a drink by myself, and I ended up sparking up a conversation with someone who worked in a similar industry that I had worked in. And I was like, yeah, that experience, like it took something from my soul. And he literally put his hand on me and he's like, that is exactly how I would put it. And that piece. So thank you for framing up that behavior change is on top of people's struggles at this moment. So what do you think there?
I mean, that's why it's so necessary, because you're actively committing harm. Like, you are hurting people. Yeah. That's very general, right? Like, not everyone is doing that, but enough people are doing it where people are really, that's why people have you have these quiet quitting phenomena. You have these people who are just trying to do the bare minimum, because it's like, I'm going into a situation where I'm actively being hurt. I'm going to protect myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm only going to do whatever the bare minimum I need to do in order to do my job, because basic needs, I need a check, right? But I don't want to be an active participant in this. And so from the leader's perspective, the self-awareness part is key. You got to understand how you're showing up and how you're treating people, and then adjust that behavior.
So anyone who listens to us, you will always hear us start with self-awareness. You cannot get away from yourself. So Sarah, when you're thinking about clients calling you, saying, hey, we have all these issues, what are some of the things that people are even coming to you with in the first place in terms of why they're engaging your services? They want a wizard. Yeah. They want you to be a wizard. Is that what they're calling you for, Sarah?
No, I'm laughing is because I'm curious how this aligns with what you hear. Most people are calling because they think the problem is with the other people. Most people are calling because there's a problem with their team members. Mm-hmm. And they want to figure out how to make it more palatable. I mean, if I'm being really honest, not everyone, I think that, and it's interesting because the last year in particular, what people are asking for and what they're aware of has shifted an incredible amount. From the standpoint of realizing that people are really struggling with navigating the rapid pace of change, leaders are really struggling with how to adapt to the changing workforce, which I just have to do like a quick side point. One of my biggest pet peeves now is any time that I hear somebody say, well, people just don't want to work, Sarah.
Oh.
And my response is like, no, they want better work. And okay, so I don't want to work as much. Like, so, like,
you don't want to work either.
It's such an interesting.
Yeah, it's like,
so I think you interacted, Sarah, with our project manager, Stephanie Weselick, who we love. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's great.
She does a lot of, like, we all do a lot of, as Shanté says, random internet research. And so Stephanie found this video where they had taught, like, the phrase of people don't want to work anymore was being used since like 1868 or something like that, where there's always literally like there's an article, like newspaper article.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to do it the way you did it is really a lot of what we're talking about. Like I say that a lot with lawyers. Why do we haze people like this? This is so dumb. Law school doesn't teach you how to be a lawyer. Why? After all these hundreds of years of lawyers being lawyers, it's like, no, we just don't want to do it like that anymore. Like, so people actually do want to work, and we do the same thing as you. We don't say what you said. We just say, no, they just tired of the way you act, right? Like they're tired of you. So.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I might have to borrow that. So I would say some of the top things that people reach out to us about have to do with how do we better navigate change? How do we better create a culture of feedback, which is always interesting to me because whenever I hear our team members are struggling with how to receive feedback, that tells me you have a trust issue. Like that just tells me you haven't built the relationship. And that's not to say that you can't learn. I have to give props to my colleague, Dr. Teresa Peterson, because we were just on the call and she's the one who was like, companies will eat your soul. And at the end of our chat, she was like, can we just celebrate that this company hasn't eaten anyone's soul yet? Like, and it's not going to. But what she said that was so powerful was you cannot build skills on a poisonous foundation, on a broken foundation. You can't talk about how to more effectively have conversations of feedback if you aren't already really intentional about building the trusting, psychologically safe culture. Like you cannot build on a poisonous foundation. And so it's interesting because we've been hearing a lot about that. And I think part of the reason we're hearing that is because part of the movement that's happening, the revolution, it's not quite revolutionary, but I want it to be, is people are starting to say enough. Like, I don't want to be treated like this. I don't want to put up with how you're acting. And so people are struggling with that. They don't understand help us understand this new generation. And it's like,
I think it's not even,
that's not the issue.
And I think what's coming together for me about what Sarah's saying is that we hear a lot of the same excuses, right? Oh, it's the young people. And I have to remind people, hey, we recruit for like CFO jobs and people ghost us. So these are folks that are not 20s. These are folks that have been working a long time. We have seen many people and many generations just say, you know what, I'm going to go open a food truck. I'm going to go be a nail tech. I'm going to go do something else. So that's an excuse, right? The generation piece. The excuse of people don't want to work themselves to the bone, which nobody does. So that comment is an excuse. And I think it's just that was coming together is that people, we've built a generation of leaders that are so willing to deflect. And that personal accountability is lacking. So what is your thought there in terms of just seeing leaders and the personal accountability piece of it?
Well, let's break it down into a couple of different places. Most people who are managing people are accidental managers. They're accidental. They got promoted into a position that they have literally zero training for. And even if a company has training, they tend to wait until they're in the position. So we know that consistently we keep promoting people who are technically proficient, but not necessarily interpersonally or intrapersonally proficient. And then we're confused why engagement is so low. Not to mention we hire people who are like us. We hire if you're a 6'4" guy named John, you have a better chance of being a leader, white guy John, because you look presidential, whatever. There's lots of, we hire the wrong people, or we are not developing them enough along the way so that when they step into that, here's a recent thing that I've started to share with groups is like, in the state of Iowa, where I'm from, If I wanted to cut someone's hair, I would have to go through years of schooling. I would have to have hundreds of hours of training that is supervised. I would have to take certifications every year to cut someone's hair. And I want to be clear, I'm not minimizing the skill and technique. But for me to be responsible for the emotional, the psychological, and the physical well-being of humans, I don't need any training to do that. Right? Like, I don't need any training. And so what was your initial question? Sorry, I got off on a thing. So I want to make sure I'm really coming back to it, because I had another point.
No, but this is a good one, because I think about, you talk about this a lot, about how many hours it takes to be an expert in something.
I think who was it? Malcolm Gladwell was saying that it's 10,000 hours. I think it's to be an expert in something. I believe it's in his book, The Tipping Point, but don't quote me on that, but it is one of his books. And it does take that time to develop this expertise, but people don't apply that same level of care when it comes to people. And it's like, that's the most delicate, you're dealing with people. Why don't we treat people with that same level of care and dedication and commitment and desire to want to really treat people well? And what does that require? Yeah. What does that take?
Well, I mean, one of the challenges, right, is that not all companies actually want to treat people well, and not all people in positions of authority want to treat people well. They want to make money and they want to be productive. And I have a firm belief that if you do not care deeply for the people you're serving, you should not be in a management position, period. Like, because you will cause harm. And so the other challenge that, we could do like 4 episodes on like what's wrong with our system. But one of the things that I think people really fail, to your point, Shanté, like, if I want to learn how to play basketball, or like, I'll use me and my accordion. If I want to learn how to play a complicated instrument, I didn't read a book and go, I'm good. I didn't attend a 1-hour webinar and go, I'm good. I am doing scales every day. I am doing technique every day. I am working with somebody to help me see where I'm missing the mark, and it's so fascinating to me, this oversimplification. And I love that language of like, you didn't say fragile. What did you say?
But dealing with people, they're delicate. We don't give them the level of care.
And I think that one of the things that is so important is that if you are in a position of formal authority, you have to understand that you have so much impact over someone's mental and emotional. Like, I think what research shows is that you have as much mental and emotional impact as a spouse, and literally you like working in a toxic environment, no surprise, will literally take years off of your life. Like, there's an incredible amount of responsibility we have. And one of the ways I like to push people in positions of formal authority, let me clarify my language, is there's authority, right? Authority is you have the legal authority to make decisions, make changes, roll out policies. Like, it's what's bestowed upon you because of your role. Leadership is how do you inspire people to make action without coercion. And that's such an important part. And then you have followership. And I don't think we talk about followership enough in any kind of thing, because it's like dismissed, minimized, but the reality is you can't lead if you don't have people who are willing to like support you. And so the question that I'm asking lately, taking a book from your, taking a page from your book of being bolder, is why would somebody follow you? And if you didn't have your formal authority, would they?
And you know what? I love this distinction between being a person of authority and being a leader. I was coaching someone yesterday and they were saying, I need to be able to establish my authority. I was like, but you actually don't, because it's already been bestowed upon you. What you want to be able to establish is folks connecting with you and feeling like, so if you walk around and saying, but I am the VP of whatever, like no one cares. In fact, that's going to turn most people off because they don't care about your title. They recognize that you are paid more than them, giving them direction. People understand that. What it is how you engage and become a leader. And I think the thing that is probably maybe obvious, but we haven't directly said it, and I just want to say this. It's bizarre that it takes more time to get certified to cut hair than it does to become a leader, because you need people to do these jobs. Right? Yes, we know that there's AI and things like that. However, most jobs still require a human being. So if you're not actually interested in doing the human being part, you're not actually interested in making money or doing the job or any of the things say. Like that they're saying, oh, we want to be productive and make money. Okay, well, you need these people.
But how are you going to do that if you don't have people there to do the job?
Yeah.
And that they're not, and to your point of the I think you said this when we were talking to Theo, of like, people don't feel safe if they're not brought in. And so they're giving you the bare minimum. You want to talk about that a little bit, how it fits here?
Well, I mean, I think it was during this, man, these days, they just blur together. But it's like,
yeah, they do.
You that's part of the DEI work. It's part of the inclusion work. If you're trying to create the culture of inclusion, you're trying to, create a container for people to feel like they want to show up and give their full selves to their work. They have to feel safe to do so. They have to trust that this is, they can trust you and they can trust this environment. They can trust the people there. The psychological safety comes up almost in every conversation that we have in creating that container for inclusion. So if people don't feel that way, and if they're getting a vibe off of you, they're not going to show up in their full selves. And again, what does that impact? That impacts profitability. It impacts your bottom line. It impacts production. It impacts everything. If people don't feel safe, they don't trust, you're not gonna get the other two parts of that. You're only gonna get the one.
Diversity